Hello New Zealand, I'm Bob McCoskrie. Welcome to Straight Talk. This is episode number 53. And tonight we discuss the ridiculous ruling from the Australian Federal Court last week that a biological man who identifies as a woman can be part of a social media app designed for only women. I'm sure our women listeners will have some comments to make on that. A poll that shows New Zealanders back Kamala Harris over Donald Trump to be the next president. Auckland City Council is cracking down on booze outlets, including when supermarkets can sell alcohol. And Prime Minister Christopher Luxon lectured mayors from around the country to stop wasting ratepayer money. Who could possibly disagree with that? Without further ado, though, let's introduce the panel. Another stunningly handsome lot, and pretty to add. Firstly, with the handsome lot, and that is Bruce Logan in Christchurch. How are you, Bruce? I hear it was one of the coldest days of the year.
Very well, I thought it was. I went out there and I nearly froze to the spot.
Okay. Does that sort of mean that the whole global warming thing's a crock?
No, because yesterday was one of the warmest.
Make up your mind. Okay. And beside you is Simon O'Connor, who you had a shave, did you, Simon? You just look different. Us panellists couldn't figure out what was different. What's different?
Yeah, I know. Post-politics, I just don't need to shave as much. So now I sort of feel youthful and vibrant. I mean, what great timing for your show.
Well, go to Parliament, and I don't think anybody gets dressed up for Parliament now, so I'd be quite at home in my jandals. Now, down also in Christchurch is Dr. Michael Reid. Nice to have you back, Michael. It seems like we've missed you for a couple of weeks. Have you been away, or has it just been a busy schedule?
Bob. And good evening, everyone. Look, I don't know. It's just been a long time, Bob. It's been too long, okay. But we'll put things to rights tonight.
Okay, and very exciting, representing the XX chromosome is our new panellist, Susie Miller, who has a doctorate in motherhood, she says. She's Samoan, so watch out. And she's also on a school board of trustees. She's actually the chairperson for a school in South Auckland. Susie, nice to have you on board. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, good to go. Hello from Manurewa.
Did I miss anything from your CV that was of note?
Maybe that I major in girls because I've got more girls than boys.
Oh, there we go. Okay, well, we'll be expecting some attitude when it comes to that court decision from Australia. Last week we did honour Major Mawson, who's a 96-year-old who watches this program every Monday night. In fact, his family said that he gets up from the dinner table no matter where the meal is at and to get ready to watch. So, Major Mawson, again, good night, good evening to you. And then at the weekend, I was speaking in, where was it, Hamilton, and I was told about a lady by the name of Joy Thomas, who is, get this team, 105, and she watches Straight Talk as well. So, Bruce, you are in good company. Joy... Joy, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have you, Joy. I hear it's your 106th birthday coming up, and I hear that you had a little bit of illness, so you might have missed last week, but we hope you're watching this week. Anyway, without further ado, video of the week, and both of them come from the, unfortunately, Democrat conference, and both the leader that just got taken out by a coup and stabbed in the back, President Joe Biden, wanted to talk about abortion, and so did Kamala Harris. They just love talking about abortion. The only problem is that when Joe Biden talked about it, he sort of lost his way.
In his decision overturning Roe v. Wade, as you heard earlier tonight, the United States Supreme Court majority wrote the following, quote, "Women are not without electoral or political power."
Smile,
kidding.
Joe. No kidding, Joe. There we are. Women are without electrical power. So we're expecting some electricity tonight. And then Kamala Harris got up to talk about abortion as well. Now, the interesting thing is that as she talks about it, the Democrat-run TV coverage zoomed on to someone in particular. Watch who it was. See if you can get the connection.
And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law.
Oops. Yeah, there's nothing like showing babies when you're talking about killing them. So that wasn't very good choice of camera work there. The other thing is that one of our videos from Straight Talk went viral last week. It was the one about the Italian not able to figure out how to say something non-binary. It was this clip.
How to say non-binary in Italian. Non-binary is translated in Italian with non-binario or non-binaria according with the gender of the subject.
So anyway, that had 1 million views on Facebook alone. So that's why the question later on in the Spot Quiz team is, how many views did Family First have on their Facebook page in the last week? It was quite an incredible figure. Our image of the week is the latest pronouncement from the UN. Very important. We need to understand this, and it is that trans lesbians are lesbians. Now, the only problem with that, I was thinking, is that, like, if you're a trans lesbian, that means you're a biological dude, right? Who's identifying as a woman. So you're a lesbian, but if you're a biological dude who likes women, that makes you heterosexual, doesn't it? So you're not... Bruce, you must be able to explain this to me, because I just can't get my head around it.
No, you can't, because it's nonsense.
Yeah.
You can't get your head around nonsense.
No. Okay, well, that leads us perfectly into our first topic, and that is that an Australian court last week made a major ruling. Now, it was a case entitled Giggle Tickle, and I'm going to get Simon to explain it shortly, because he actually interviewed the woman who was basically taken to court because they reckon she discriminated against this transgender woman, Roxanne Tickle. That's an interesting surname. And Roxanne Tickle, who's a dude, wanted to be on this Talk Freely for Just Females app. And basically, they took a look at the photo and they figured out, no, that's not a dude. Sorry, that's not a girl, that is a dude. Simon, you have, as I just showed in that image there, you actually had an interview with the woman who was sued or taken to court. She lost. Can you just give us a bit of background of what that discussion was about and how significant this case is to you?
Firstly, not the most flattering picture, but Sal and I do look better in real life. Look, long and short, Sal Grove is the woman in that picture. She set up an app for women only, so they can talk about life, dating even, going back to your lesbian question. So just an app for women to talk about women's issues. Now, that guy there that you've now got on screen, Roseanne Tickle, is a biological male who is now legally identified as a woman in Australia, because being a woman is nothing more than a legal definition. It's got, nothing to do with biology. So he insisted on being on the app. And Sal and the team said, no, this is only for women. And so the guy, fitting a particular stereotype of how men approach women, which is aggressively, took Sal and crew to the court. And unfortunately, because of, it's actually Julia Gillard, and I thought I'd just mention her quickly, Bob, because Julia Gillard's made a whole political career around supposedly defending women and being against misogyny. But dear old Julia changed the Sex Discrimination Act in Australia to include gender identity. So when Sal went to court, she was she was always going to lose because gender identity trumps sex identity. In other words, your belief that you're a woman or whatever trumps actual biological reality. So Sal and women have lost out in Australia. At the end of the day, there are really no such thing as women's spaces anymore, because any man, or anyone for that matter, can just choose to identify. So women's sports, women's spaces, women's scholarships, all out the window.
Okay, well, before I ask a real woman what she thinks of the decision, Simon, just from what Sal said, it's pretty likely that she will appeal this case. I mean, she must have known just the way the law was written and the way that dear Miss Gillard had created this law, that this was probably going to be the outcome.
Yeah, Sel was under no illusion. So with that podcast record, for example, when she was talking with me, it was quite explicit that she expected to lose. At the end of the day, the law is a nonsense. It says a woman is someone who's biologically a woman, but it's also anybody else who decides that they happen to be. So it's an absurd situation. And look, I'm no lawyer. I don't know Australian law inside out. But if that's how it's written, it's going to be very difficult to overturn in the legal or court space. It's actually going to take MPs and senators over there some gumption to work out actually what a woman is.
Yeah. Susie, as you watch all of this, I mean, it's women that are affected by this gender nonsense, because it's men who want to play in girls' sports teams. It's men who want to go into the female toilets. It's women who are being made to feel vulnerable through all of this, and now they can't even have their private woman's function. Why, or what's your response to it? Does it make your blood boil?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I feel really sad for Sal and for real women in general. I mean, you can't fault her for wanting to build a platform for women only, because I heard in your interview, Simon, that she, she'd been in Hollywood, brave enough to work there, and then wanted to, for a therapeutic reason, she wanted to build a platform for chicks. And I fully get that, because here's what I know from being a woman for so long, that we need the sisterhood. And so we can support one another uniquely. And so it doesn't matter if you're single or married, especially if you're married, your husbands get quite annoying. And so we need to, you're like, where's my sisters at? And so I can hear and see Sal's need to set up her space. And it's just devastating that, the judges turned around and said that sex is changeable and isn't necessarily binary. If it's not binary, then I guess it's the 66 genders. But that defies biology, defies biblical truth. It defies what you and I can see with our own two eyes. And it's sad, because it absolutely does set a precedent. I mean, a few things have failed Sal. I heard that her facial recognition software didn't work in the first place, so it took 7 months for Rox and Tickle. Like, honestly, the name should have given it away straight away. But so she must have submitted a really pretty selfie or something, but it took a while. Secondly, this judge had an opportunity to affirm reality. Come on, it's obvious. Call a male a male. And that could have saved a lot of hurt and anguish, which is going to carry on. I can see that. I didn't know about Julia Gillard's law. That's a shocker from a female. And
2013. So it's taken 11 years for it to basically to see the evidence of just how flawed it was. I was interested that it was a male judge. Bruce, the judge said in the decision that case law has consistently found that sex is changeable and not necessarily binary.
Yeah.
That says everything, doesn't it?
You're talking
you're
to me
Bruce.
now.
Yeah, I'm talking to the XY chromosome. Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course, we have to follow the law. I dare say the judge is right in following the law. But we've got a problem, because in Australia anyway, you're only a woman if the law says you are, which is a bit tricky. And that we've got a real double-headed monster of a problem. Untethered human rights law and anti-discrimination law. Now, I was taught as a young man that if I was going to believe in human rights, I had to believe that every human being is sacred. And to believe that every human being is sacred, I also have to believe in God. Human rights can only be universal, which, of course, the whole transgender thing is depending on. Can only be if it's got a foundation for them. And that used to be the Genesis story, and it was a binary story of male and female. Now, we no longer have a story that will give us that foundation of universal sacredness. So it's not surprising that human rights have moved away from the protection of the individual, and in that case the individual woman, to the establishment of a kind of tribal legitimacy. And that tribal, of course, is what the transgender lobby and the others declare it to be. We can actually change our sex. Remarkable. And we have been arrested. If we have been created in God's image, male and female, if we haven't been, then we no longer have a foundation to go on. We just don't have any foundation for determining whether we're male or female. So the law has to decide it for us.
Yeah.
It's the only option we have. And so we live out of fantasy. Now, so if that's the law, then the law's an ass. And I can't remember. I mean, rather, I can remember a story from. You see, it's a Biden syndrome. I can't. Just to quote Mr. Bumble in Oliver Twist. Remember Mr. Bumble in Oliver Twist? If the law supposes that, he said, Mr. Bumble, squeezing his hat emphatically in both hands. Mr. Bumble, by the way, had been having trouble with his wife. If the law says that, it's an ass, an idiot. If that's the eye of the law is a bachelor. And the worst I wish for the law is that the eye may be opened by experience. Now, hopefully Di won't be with us forever, that is, inclusion, diversity and equity, and it will go. And that experience in it will prove its folly, and it will be exposed for what it really is, a lie that underpins the whole context of what it means to be a man or a woman. And it's a disaster.
Yep. Now, Michael, I read a very good book by, who was it by? It was by Dr. Michael Reed. What was that called? What was that book you wrote, Michael?
It was an insight to Robert McCoskey's mental state, I think.
No, that not that really slim one that was only sold 3 copies. No, what was your bestseller one? Your very good book that I want you to rewrite. What's it called again?
Oh, it was about children's rights, Bob. And
yes.
It was a history of children's rights from the Victorian era in New Zealand through to, it was then the early 2000s. I called the book From Innocence to Agents because Bruce was talking about, was it Dickens there, Bruce? This Victorian idea of children as being innocents and needing protection. And, of course, when the parents were no longer there, the state assumed that role. And it didn't always go very well, of course. But children were seen as innocents, needing protection, and then right through to the 2000s where children became empowered agents given rights by the law, empowerment rights, no longer protection rights, Bob, but empowerment rights to assert themselves. And we had people like Steve Mahare saying that the Littleys lobby, which was set up in the early 2000s, will be our next big lobbying force. Kindergartens came under the state ambit with Trevor Mallard's reforms in 2004. So our youngest children were being politicised. Kindergartens were politicised. And so, it was quite a journey, Bob, historically, from that more Victorian view of children as innocents needing protection to being empowered agents. Yeah.
And the reason I bring up that book is because of the fact that, in my view, it was not a pathetic book, but a prophetic book, because what's happening now is that while we can guffaw and say this is just ridiculous, and most adults will see it as that, we're raising a whole generation with this confusing message, and we have a senior court member in Australia saying that, sex is not binary, you can change it. Yeah. No wonder our kids are stressed.
Oh, absolutely, Bob. And what Bruce was saying, that the 1948 UN Declaration on Human Rights was really based essentially on the biblical narrative. But of course, as the 20th century progressed and into the 21st century, that idea of universal human rights by virtue of the fact that we're human beings made in God's image gave way to group empowerment rights and group identity rights. So your human rights now depended on which group you belong to and identified with. So that identity politics has really just come full circle into this whole so-called gender debate now. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's check some of the comments because they have been pouring in. Sheree says, whew, made it on time for a change. Hi, everyone. Nice to have you, Sheree. Tracy, Susie, I've obviously got a fan club here. Tracy says, hello, lovely Susie. The gardener's gone wild. Say hi all from the Kapiti Coast. Janina says, go, Susie. Just to bring things back to the male dominance. Bob, you're on fire, says Sean. Oh, sorry, I thought I could smell smoke. Who's this? Neil says reproductive freedom, a perfect Orwellian newspeak. Exactly. You have reproductive freedom. It's what you do with that freedom that counts. New Zealand Kiwi says the tickle block case was disgusting for women. Charmaine said it's a pity she didn't say this is only for biological women. Well, I think the reason she can't is because, as Nancy says, and we just heard Nancy Margaret says the law is an ass, donkey that is, definitely proven now. New Zealand Kiwi says it's up to women, men, mums and dads to step up and say no more. Refuse to participate in sports, boycott Olympics and push back in this BS. Actually, I want to come back to you on Susie on that because I just want to ask you what women have to do. Just two more. Craig, what chromosomes do you have if you are a they, them? Well, you never walk alone if you're a they, them. And Joe says Roxanne would not be here. This is actually a very good comment. Joe says, Roxanne would not be here if he didn't have a mother, i.e. a woman who gave birth to him. Only a woman, i.e. a female can give birth. Sex is binary. Actually, that's what they should say to Roxanne. You can enter the woman's space when you can prove that your mother wasn't a adult human female. Susie, just before we move on to the next topic, I sort of sit here and feminist groups, we all used to be very scared of them. Simon used to quake in his boots every time a feminist came anywhere near him. And yet it seems like they have been completely neutered and they just can't stop this roadshow completely taking away their rights. What's going to get women really angry?
Outcomes like this, I think it should cause a groundswell of agitated TERFs, hopefully. I see on Twitter a lot more, women, like lesbians, all women, like uniting to kind of defeat a common foe because we are being shut out. And, either way, it's just like men are making judgments like that judge, and men are like making their way into our events and everything else. So,
it just seems like women are being very polite at the moment, and I wonder if they're ever going to just lose their rag like some of our wives have. Not thinking of anyone, of course.
No evidence at all.
No. Okay. Yeah, well, let's hope they do get racked up. Anyway, while we're speaking about the contrast, let's just go back to US politics, because there is something interesting happening in terms of the flow-down effect on New Zealand. So basically they did a poll. Oh, actually, just before I show you the poll, this was a quote from former President Obama at the Democrat conference last week. Now, I think he meant to say something, but what he's actually said is actually quite funny. He says... We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. Now, I have a suspicion that was referring to Trump. But having said that, just coming out of the Biden's 4 years, I got a little confused, and I think he may have accidentally shot himself in the foot. But anyway, there was this poll done in New Zealand, and what it did was they said to New Zealanders, a representative poll which was done through, what company was it? Talbot Mills, which I think Simon does Labour Party polling, doesn't it? Talbot Mills, are they their in-house pollster? Yep. Mm-hmm. So they did a poll, and they said, who are you going to vote? If you could vote, who would you vote for? And this was the result. 55% said Kamala Harris, 21% said Donald Trump. And then they broke it down into age groups. And actually what I found interesting is that the older you get, Bruce, the more likely you're to vote for Kamala Harris. That's pretty shocking, Bruce. I'm ashamed of your lack of intellect there. And then the next question was based on party vote. And interestingly enough, it's only New Zealand First voters that prefer Donald Trump. As you can see, the Greens hate him. Labour sort of hates him, but even National is sort of 2-1. So the question that sort of came out of this for me was, and Michael, let's start with you. You've sort of got a bit of an awareness around polling. Is this actually a tribute to the New Zealand media that they have done a fantastic job at painting this person who the Democrats wanted nothing to do with? She was a complete liability. She's basically done nothing for 4 years, and suddenly she is like the political messiah of the Democrat Party. And New Zealanders have been totally sucked in by it. So is this credit to the media in New Zealand?
Well, Bob, I think New Zealanders have been fed so much anti-Trump material and from our legacy mainstream media. So, of course, many will support Harris because I think in the back of the average New Zealander's mind, who's not really thinking through issues, they sort of project what they see wrong with Seymour and Winston into the American context, and Trump represents that sort of bogeyman for them. But I couldn't help but think, Bob, of when Hipkins had a very brief surge in the polls when he replaced Ardern, until, of course, people realised that he was the key architect in many of those policies. He was the proverbial minister of everything in the Jacinda Ardern government. So, look, I think New Zealanders have seen all the ridiculous stuff from Trump, and he's easy to pillory and dismiss. But we very seldom, Bob, in our media, get any sort of real insight to what the policies are, either from Republicans or Democrats, So we project with our rather narrow and very parochial understanding of politics and the political structures into the American situation. So, I mean, Trump is a caricature of himself, isn't he? Almost, really.
Yeah.
And but we're not getting any analysis of actual policy, and so of course New Zealanders see it through the lens of what legacy media presents to them. So I'm not surprised by that at all, Bob.
Okay, Susie, when I sent the question through, I said to you as panellists, are New Zealanders dumb, deluded, deceived, or discerning? Which are they, in your view?
I'm going to take the safe option and say they're not discerning. That's for sure. I don't see a balanced or sober public opinion about Trump at all. If I go to meetings, even at a pub quiz, inevitably the MC is going to make some dig about Trump. And as like Michael said, it's not so much pro-Kamala as everyone's just TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and it's anyone but him. One thing that really disturbs me is that in Queenstown there's a urinal in the shape of Trump's head, and I've just thought that's kind of shameful.
Really?
So many, expressions of New Zealanders' hate for him, and it's not researched. There's not enough people really digging and finding out, what is he really about? And like you were saying, the policies for either candidates aren't really trumpeted much. It's just all about their character, and their character assassinate one another, and it's a big show.
Do you think Kamala is having a Jacinda Ardern moment?
Yeah, for
just
sure.
The contrast to two very old men who people think are grumpy, and just here's Kamala, fresh new face. And
yeah, absolutely. I don't think though that everyone is taken in by her because she's got some funny traits in America anyway, just from what I see from people's posts. Her laugh is a little bit grating on people, and her lack of sort of substance in the things that she says and the things that she and everybody points out the fact that she says, I'm going to make a change as soon as I get him. She's like, you're already there, so you could be making the change now. But
Simon, do you think it is just very friendly media coverage? I mean, actually, just one of the stats that I saw, there was actually some polling done, research done. So you know how we've, after some big social issues like the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the cannabis referendum and the conversion therapy law, we analysed all the media, mainstream media, and found out that it was very, very biased. Well, the US Media Research Centre study looked at all the campaign coverage on three major news channels in the States, ABC, CBS and NBC, and it was from the day that Biden exited the race for 4 weeks. And this is what number do I want? I want 12. This is the breakdown. They found that the coverage of Harris was 84% positive and of Trump 89% negative. That is a typical picture of mainstream media, I'd suggest, not only in the States, but also here. So, but we've seen this before, haven't we, Simon? And we saw that even then, we saw in the cannabis referendum, even when all the odds were against us, you still actually can persuade the people despite what those mainstream media are saying.
Yeah, I'm pretty echoing what everyone else has said. It is a highly biased media, but it also is indicative of why most people don't actually trust the media. It's why you end up with results in actuality, which are quite different from the polls themselves. And look, at the end of the day, Kiwis are just fed a very singular diet, which is Trump bad, everyone else perfectly fine. And never forget, it was mainstream media who have gaslit us for years now around Biden's condition. And they have been gleefully happy to throw their weight in behind, to be honest, anyone else. And look, it's only a very, very small anecdote to illustrate, but I actually just sat down with an Iranian expert today from a Washington, D.C. think tank, and he was pointing out that Trump's decision to sanction Iran when he was president caused Iran far more economic damage than 8+ years of war with Iraq. And why that's important, without dragging you into the foreign affairs space, is the world wrings its hands at this Iranian Islamic regime and achieves nothing. Trump comes in and actually does something and does it effectively. But I could tell you right now, 99.9% of Kiwis would have absolutely no idea. And I think that, again, is just illustrative of the problem that we're facing. Yeah.
Bruce, do those statistics surprise you? I mean, is that surprising that it's just so biased?
They're a bit more excessive than I thought they would be, but certainly I thought they'd turn out in that direction. That doesn't surprise me. And so I think it's clear. I mean, it's very easy to convince people on television and so on to get that 30-second slot or even 3 or 4 second slot, and it's all on vibes. And Kamala associates to everyone on vibes because she's got no policy, and it's just impression, and that seems to be working for her. There's just one thing I found interesting. The same time that New Zealand went through its polling, Israel did too, about the same week. And in Israel, Harris came out at 28% favourability. The previous month, by the way, Biden had come out at 55%. But in comparing Harrison's 28%, Trump came out at 64%. No opinion for 9%. But one of the interesting stats was the 18 to 24-year-olds, 93% of them preferred Trump. And I wondered why. Why this huge gap? Although I see the young people are better than the oldies in New Zealand. Why this huge gap in Israel compared with New Zealand? And I suspect, why are the young people in Israel in love with Trump? Well, I suspect it's because they're on the front line. They know which way the world's spinning, which we don't know in New Zealand or don't seem to know. And they know that Harris is all vibes and no policy.
Yep.
And the Democrat supporters, they suspect, seem to think that the capital of the US is Hollywood. And you're looking at the Democrat convention, you think it was. And I suspect that many young people in New Zealand think it is too. Certainly a number of young people in America, but not in Israel. And it's nothing like being on the front line.
Yeah. Well, New Zealand's totally the opposite of that, because if you look at that age breakdown, what was the age group that you were quoting? It was under 30, wasn't it? And you
18
said it
to
was
24. 18 to 24.
And you said it was hugely in favour of Donald Trump in Israel.
93%.
Wow. And here, Kiwi kids,
Yeah.
44% for Harris and 28% for Trump, based on that. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the next one up, the old wasn't quite as high, but the 24 to 37 or something it was. But
Yeah.
and they're the people carrying the rifles. They're the people confronting the issues.
Yeah.
And so they understand what's going on. And so I think that's the difference.
Okay, let's get some comments. Albert says the RFK factor is interesting. So he's just endorsed Trump, much to the annoyance of the Kennedy Democrat family. Even his wife was a little bit annoyed with him, apparently. He wouldn't be eating too well over the next week. Darwin says, how many of those who voted for Kamala also watch mainstream media? Liam says, behold the power of the television and the mainstream media. We have seen their power in COVID and now we see it again. Kirstine says, nothing, Bob. She did. Kamala hasn't been doing nothing, Bob. She did let 7 million plus illegals through the border. Lex says, Kamala is a ditz. And I just wanted to say that because ditz is a word that I have not heard for a long time, but I used to use it a lot on my brothers and half my friends. James says there's been a massive social media campaign to register US citizens in New Zealand to vote in the upcoming election. Actually, true, James. I've seen that feed on my social medias as well. Given the media coverage here, this will only benefit the Democrats. True. I wouldn't be surprised if this is happening in other countries which are sympathetic to leftist ideology. So, yeah, it won't be happening in Israel probably. Craig says, would you vote Trump because Harris is bad or because Trump is good? Neither are fit. That's true, Craig, but it's a binary choice and we love the binary and you've got to choose one. So which is it going to be? Celine says, do you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? That's a Miller. Is that any relation?
That's my daughter.
Susie? Your daughter. She's supposed to be doing the washing and homework, I think, isn't she? But it's a very good one. That's a Kamala line. Darwin says the appalling mainstream media impact is why we're so grateful for the growing traction of Family First and RCR. I won't read that bit because that's a question coming up. Kevin says the New Zealand public did vote in variance with the mainstream media in the last election. That's true. And if you believe the media, you'd think the government was the most unpopular government at the moment in the history of governments. And in fact, they're not. Marita says, well done, Simon. Well said, Simon. What did you say, Simon?
Well, clearly something very good. I mean, Marita has absolutely discerning tastes.
Marita, could you let me know what Simon said that was well said? Because I have no idea. And Stephen says, legacy media is dying. StraightTalk is on the up with this. Stephen Miller. It's your husband. It's pathetic. The whole Miller family is just, although here we go. Sean says, go Celine, great comment. And Nico says, was nice meeting you on Saturday in Hamilton. There we go. Nice to meet you too, Nico. Had a great breakfast down in a church there. And just finally, I do want to read this one because this is interesting. Ely Rayler says, Trump is pro-life, pro-Israel, pro-border, anti-war. I could go on. What is wrong with these points, I ask? Simon, there has been a little bit. Have you been monitoring that Trump's been making a few dumb statements around the abortion issue to the point where he put out some tweet in the last 24 hours saying that when he becomes president, reproductive freedom for women will not be better. But you could read that as, is he talking about reproductive freedom as in just encouraged to be women? I mean, that's a loaded term, isn't it? That's AKA abortion. So what's he getting at? Have you sort of analysed that?
Look, I haven't analysed it. I mean, he's clearly feeling the heat on this issue. I mean, the Democrats are absolutely obsessed with this, which when you think about all the issues going on in America and the world is is tragic, to put it diplomatically. Look, at the end of the day, Trump's position is that it's up to the states to decide, and I wouldn't get myself too distracted beyond that. He's not going to do anything in the federal space. At day's end, from what I can see, he ultimately supports that it's up to each state to make their decision of, where they draw the line on abortion, whether it's a complete ban or a partial ban. But he's clearly feeling the heat, I would assume, if he's tweeting about it. And look, speaking as a politician, you don't follow the momentum of your opponents. You try to set your own course. So he'd be better off getting back onto his issues like crime and the border, for example.
Yeah. Okay, look, we've done 2 heavy topics, so it's time for a little bit of a spot quiz. So let's go around the traps, and we'll start with the ladies first. So first question is, who should replace Chris Hipkins, Chippy, as leader of the Labour Party? Who do you think, Susie?
I'm a complete fail. I don't know any Labour Party members. I'm so sorry.
Helen
sorry,
Clark,
ladies.
Jacinda Ardern.
No. Please.
No. Okay.
No, I couldn't help you there, sorry.
Okay, you just don't follow the Labour Party. That's what you're saying, eh? You just...
Sadly, not enough research in that area.
No, okay. Do you know who your local MP is?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
It's a woman.
That's all right. I know. Lovely girl.
Arena Williams.
Arena Williams, yeah. I know.
There we go.
I do know one.
Okay. Michael, who should replace Chris Hipkins as leader of the Labour Party?
Oh, Bob, here we go.
It's kind of like the poison chalice question, eh? It's like nobody wants to answer it.
However you answer it, really. Yeah. I mean, if we believe mainstream legacy media, Karen McAnulty is the up-and-coming one. I don't know much about, who's left? Who's left? That's a good question.
Well, one of them, who's the one that's going on Celebrity Treasure Island or whatever it is, because she's got nothing to do as a politician? Who's that, Simon? Is it Carmel
Cipollone?
Yeah. So there we are. You would have had a lot of time to go on Celebrity Treasure Island, Simon. Why weren't you on? Did they want you for Dancing with the Stars or something?
Well, neither, and I think good for my own psychological state in my marriage that I wasn't part of it. But
yeah.
Look,
so who would you choose?
Labour doesn't. Well, they don't actually have a lot of depth, and I don't mean that with terrible disrespect. National was in arguably a similar space when it went into opposition. You're gutted of your people, and your choices aren't very broad. I mean, McNulty wants it. Actually, Arena Williams might be someone who could work for them. She brings a bit of elan and energy, but not necessarily the depth and policy. So they're going to struggle if they try to replace Hipkins. That's the
hang on. Arena Williams stood in a questionnaire political meeting in a church that Susie knows about. And what was the question, Susie? She was asked, can women get pregnant? No,
a little diddle.
That's right. Can women have a... Whoop?
Yeah.
And she said yes. So I went through the whole list. I think Elliot was there. There was a few others. Everyone said no, and then she said yes. Yeah. Anyway.
Look, she's absolutely, off the reservation on this stuff. But
so that means she qualifies.
Comes to shove.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're going to push comes to shove, it's not who I want. I don't see the talent there across their caucus. But push comes to shove, she would be one that they would look to.
Okay. And Bruce, who would you choose? Norman Kirk is not available?
Go double the Greens and have 4 leaders.
Yeah, no, we're not having that, because under the Greens you've got to have a female and you've got to have a
but
Maori,
under Labor
don't
they can have a female, a male, and transgender, and
because Darlene Tana identifies as they them, so could she actually be both 4. The leaders of Greens?
Yeah,
I don't know.
So they need 4.
Okay, next question, and this was a bit of a stir in the media over the last couple of days because they're covering the real big issues. Have you ever stood in a car park to save it for someone, Susie?
That's what my children are for, and I think
have you got them to stand there while you turn around and come back to the car park?
I did do that in the past, maybe at Christmas time when it was manic, but sorry.
Unbelievable.
Is
That is
that rude?
shocking. Okay, this isn't being broadcast throughout New Zealand. Michael, have you ever done that or got your kids to do it or got your wife to save a spot standing there?
No, Bob, and I think it's probably more of an Auckland issue with all your transport woes there. I don't think it's. I'd never heard of this actually, but no. To answer your question,
okay. It was actually Simon Barnett that was discussing it on News Talk ZB, and I mean he's from Christchurch, so it must be a big issue down there. Bruce, have you ever got Mrs. Logan to lie in the car park while you turn the car around?
Yes. Oh, certainly. Only if it's raining.
Lovely. Simon, you would have, wouldn't you? Got one of the kids to do it?
No, I've actually been stretching my mind. I don't think I ever have. I'm just far too polite, so I'm not going to do that myself or force anyone else to do it for me.
Okay. I have a confession to make. I actually did it once, but we were at a physio appointment and my daughter got a bad physio diagnosis and I felt a little bit faint. So I went out to the car park at the back and just lay in one of the car park lanes so that the blood would rush back to my head. So that's my excuse. So it wasn't really saving it was saving myself. Just final question, and the reason we're asking this is because McDonald's actually worldwide is seeing a decline. Apparently we are turning off McDonald's. So very quickly, what's your favourite fast food, Susie?
Wendy's, because my husband took me there before he proposed to me, and that's extremely romantic.
Oh, you're calling going to Wendy's on a date romantic? Okay.
Yeah, at a stretch, totally.
Oh,
I like KFC. To be honest, I actually like KFC.
Okay, Michael?
Indian Bob, followed by Souvlaki's, I think.
Yeah, well, that's not fast food. That's kind of posh food. That's, fancy. Simon?
For us, it's Burger Fuel, actually. If we're going to have a fast food, Burger Fuel's our go-to.
Okay, and Bruce, do you have fast food or do you just get Mary to make your beautiful French dishes?
Oh, I sneak out sometimes and I get blue cod and chips. Crumbed blue cod and chips.
Blue cod and chips from that fish place. What's it called? I know the one you mean. And finally, special award is, how many views did Family First get on Facebook last week? I don't think I gave you this one, Gordy. Does anybody know? Oh, there we are, $1 million question. That's a clue. Simon, you're not able to answer this because you know the answer. Anybody know how many views Family First got on Facebook just in the last 7 days?
2.2.
Well, that was actually 2.2 was from 7 days. Yeah, actually 7 days. Yeah, okay. Because see, we got that extra million on either side. So I was going to say 3.2, but well done. You were reading stuff. Well done. Okay, let's go back to the serious topics. And it is that Auckland City Council has decided that they are going to crack down on booze. And so they're going to stop booze being sold after 9 o'clock in supermarkets and bottle stores. That's going to come into force by December. They're going to have a 2-year freeze on new liquor stores in the central city. Don't know why not the whole city. And they've also got some other policies as well. The freeze, the alcohol sales. So those are the two main ones. It seems to have taken a long time to come around. Simon, because you were in the House and the whole debates were going through at the time, is this actually because politicians haven't done this, or you think it's good? Local areas are making decisions that the local communities want on this?
It's both insofar as basically central government delegates or hands over authority to local government, partly because the parliament's always been divided around alcohol reform. There are those that want to toughen it up, there's those who want to loosen it, there's those who want to keep it the same. So they've handed, if you will, responsibility over to council. So kudos actually to Auckland that they've made this decision. I mean, who needs to buy booze after 9 o'clock? And arguably many, not all, but many who are, probably had too much already. And as for the no more stores, that makes sense too. I think you and I were talking about it the other day. It's, liquor stores now are ubiquitous along with vaping stores. They're just everywhere. So we don't need more. The only caveat I'd put there is a philosophical point or a point of principle. At the end of the day, alcohol is not illegal in New Zealand. So, to the extent you're beginning to limit a legal business, you can try to make that argument. But ultimately, we've got liquor stores everywhere. I think this is actually a very sensible move.
Yeah. Bruce, do you think this is well overdue? Do you think the government's dropped the ball a bit on just the proliferation of alcohol, the cheapness of it, and the social
I
harm?
agree with Simon. Good on the Auckland Council for doing this. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer to reduce the number of hours that's available. We don't need it after 9 o'clock, and if you do, as Simon very obviously points out, if you do need it, you probably had too much already. And I think it should be nationwide. I'd like to see, and having no new outlets for 2 years, I think that's a sensible one as well. And I would like to see the purchase age raised to 21. Actually, there's something interesting thing going on too. I'm told that there's a trend among young people to drink less, and palatable non-alcoholic beer and wine, I'm told, is getting better every day, although I haven't managed to taste any yet. However, I suspect that defeats the purpose of beer and wine anyway. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe the non-alcoholic beer and wine might be half the solution.
I know that a lot of the beer companies have been looking at the health aspects, so low carb Heineken, there's been, alcohol-free or low alcohol content. So at least they're thinking about that aspect. Susan, you're based in Manarewa, which is very, it's very attractive for both pokie machines and liquor alcohol outlets. Is it a major issue that you think good on the council for finally getting tough on this area?
I'd say it's not tough enough. A lot of supermarkets close at 9 anyway, so it's same. And I had hoped, I just assumed that the freeze on new outlets would be extended out to South Auckland because we definitely do not need more and we need less. So it's a major problem here. It's you go to A&E, Middlemore, the line is chaos for you to get healthcare because it's full of people who are there for alcohol-related injuries and issues. So, we need far less here. And I'm with Bruce. I think the age limit should be raised again to 21. There's far more important things to be spending your money on as an 18-year-old.
Yep. Michael, do you think, my understanding is that Auckland have started it, Christchurch are now thinking about it, so there might be a bit of a ripple effect throughout the country. Good move?
Yeah, I think so, Bob. Look, I mean, there is that philosophical argument that Simon raises, that it's a legal product and we have a free market. But these outlets are springing up everywhere. And sometimes the operators and owners are, quite linked to other sort of activities, drugs and what have you. So I think, limitations around it. I agree with all the others. We don't need more booze outlets. We don't need it more readily available. We don't need outlets on every street corner. We need some restrictions. The harm of alcohol's proven, and so I applaud what the supermarkets have been doing, and I think it would be good to see it elsewhere. Yeah, I just wonder how communities would go. I think most communities, Bob, would probably be in support of it, especially in areas where there are, like you were saying, Susie, and where you live, high harm areas. I actually think communities would get behind this. I think it's good. I'd like to see more of it.
Okay, a lot of confessions being made. Tracy says, I have totally stood in a car park. So there we go. Thank you for admitting that, Tracy. You are forgiven. Sean said, my wife has done it. No one wants to mess with her. New Zealand Kiwi said, we used to carry a road cone if needed. Very handy. Rosie, she does McDonald's and then follows it by KFC. So well done. Somebody was laughing at your battered blue cod. Oh, that's not a laugh. That's a lip. That's a yummy icon. There we are. Battered sounds like it got beaten up before you had it, Bruce. Wendy said, good call by Auckland Council. Generally, only drunk people want to purchase alcohol at that hour. Everyone else has organised it earlier. Jenny from Christchurch says, lots of crime in Christchurch, driven by alcohol and drugs and underages as well as adults. We need that here. Rosie says, bring it to Taupo. Taupo's got bottle shops near primary schools. We will speak to Christine Rankin about that. And Kirstine says, classic quote of the day, yep, I'm switching to Bud Light. Yeah, you and Dylan Mulvaney. Okay, let's move on to our final topic. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon went to Wellington's Takina Convention Centre, which has fond memories for Simon O'Connor and myself, because we spoke at a conference there called, what was it called? Inflection
Point.
Inflection Point, and it was pushing back against the chemicalisation and castration of our young people in the name of gender ideology. And the cafe shut down because they were so upset and got triggered by us turning up to buy a pie, and then they wonder why they're going broke. But anyway, Christopher Luxon turned up and he said, restrain your spendings, spend it on the basics, and a whole lot of people got very upset. Just have a listen to what he said.
Ratepayers expect local government to do the basics, and to do the basics brilliantly. Pick up the rubbish, fix the pipes, fill in the potholes, and more generally, maintain the local assets quickly, carefully, and cost effectively. But nothing in life is free, and ratepayers therefore expect to pay for it in exchange. But let me be blunt, what they don't expect to pay for is a laundry list of distractions and experiments that are plaguing council balance sheets across the country. I think the building that we're in today is a classic example, with pipes bursting, and quite literally this morning, pipes bursting in the streets not far from here, and other infrastructure under pressure. Wellington City Council decided to spend $180 million of ratepayers' money on a convention centre, which according to public reporting is now losing money.
Yeah, well, it's losing money because the cafe keeps shutting up because it gets upset at Simon turning up. But you would have heard the groaning there, and of course that's what the media actually played, that everyone was upset and they groaned when he said that. But actually I listened to the whole speech and they didn't actually play this bit. Listen to what happens at the end of this bit.
Challenges. Ratepayers, I'd put it to you, are sick of white elephants and are sick of non-delivery. And so my challenge to all of us is to rein in the fantasies and to get back to delivering the basics brilliantly. Now, councillors often tell me, yep.
Oh, how about that? He actually had to stop while people applauded, but you didn't hear that on the mainstream media. What happened at that conference that they all gathered at that $180 million thing is that this was some of the entertainment.
Dame Jathan, who you saw earlier.
Yeah, apparently they had a trans non-binary performer, Stevie Ann Cox-Monk, who identifies as they, them, and they played trans paper, scissors, rock, apparently. And they also had this entertainment as well. This is really exciting. This is a drag queen. Yeah, so if you want to know what your ratepayers' money is going on at these conferences, and if you want to know why drag queens are prolific in your local council libraries, that's why, because they're obsessed with it at the local conference. But this is also what your ratepayer money is going on. Today, they gave a fresh coat of paint to the beautiful crossing on K Road, because that is what ratepayers want their money to go towards. So I think Luxon is right on target, and the fact that the media got so upset and a few spendthrift mayors got upset is probably a sign that he was totally on topic. Michael, what do you think?
Oh, Bob, I totally agree. Just hearing you describe things there, I was thinking of my late father, and he was a borough councillor in the area where we lived. He got $5 a meeting, Bob. He used to wear a little chain round his neck. And all of the people that sat around the council table were people who lived and worked, and they were tradesmen, and they were totally committed to that area. They served, and they were absolutely committed to those things that Christopher Luxon mentioned. You know, people just want bread and butter local government. We don't want ideologues. We want good services. We want good infrastructure. And by the way, Bob, in my father's borough council days, we had a town clerk. Yep. We didn't have a chief executive who was drawing a massive 6-figure salary. We had a local person who was a clerk. Sounds a bit more prosaic than a chief executive, but local government, and I know the 1989 reforms got rid of all of that, and all those smaller municipalities sort of went under and got merged, but service has not improved. And then things like the RMA in the early 90s just Simon might have a different view here, but absolutely wedded local government and meshed it far more into central government. I actually see local government, Bob, as an arm of central government now. And this localism and feel-good sort of snuggly stuff, it's a fantasy because local government is absolutely tied to central government. So Christopher Luxon is quite right to say what he says. It's the sort of ethos that he's applying to central government, and local government need to get that too, that message. We're sick of profligate waste and flights of fancy and ideology. We just want good core services. It's not it's not romantic stuff, Bob, but it's what we want and it's what we need.
Okay, actually, Susie, you're on a board of trustees, and I know that they have conferences for boards of trustees, a national conference that I think you went to recently. Did you have drag queens, and did you play transgender paper scissors rock at your conference?
No, we missed that entertainment. No, but I did find Takino were very flashy and very expensive looking, and it kind of reminded me of a big fat jelly bean with mirrors on the outside. Yeah. And you walk around the corner, and the town hall is still not able to be open to public since 2013. So, where are you spending your money? But we were there, and no, we didn't have trans paper rock scissors. Okay. But I liked his speech. I thought, good on you. I don't like when my husband tells me to rein in the finances. It doesn't matter what tone he uses. I'm not going to like it, but I heard that. Media canvassing around everyone who's got a slightly negative view of what he said. But I think in general, everybody knows that's what they need to do. Just do it.
Yeah, I think there was a interesting quote from, just before I come to you, Simon, your good friend, the Wellington Mayor, Tory Whanau, who said the speech was quite shocking, actually. I think that was the tone of the audience in the room. It's pretty clear he's running our country like a business, and we're not a business. We're a community of people who have people-related needs. Well, is she right, or is actually Luxon correct?
Oh, look, Tory Whanau is completely incompetent. Let's just be clear about that. Completely and utterly incompetent. And she's wrestling her own demons, which just makes things even worse of someone who's meant to be running one of our biggest cities. So no, Luxon is right. The only little caveat I would add is that central government often places a lot of responsibilities onto council, but not with the following funding. Now, that's not defending council's decisions, but I do understand when they grumble. So like water, it's all well and good for the government of the day to tell councils off about water management, but it's actually central government that sets all the rules and sets actually quite a high bar, and councils have to follow that and find the money. But as you illustrated, convention centres, painting pedestrian crossings, a whole lot of these things, that's not what we pay our rates for. Get back to basics, as Luxon says.
Okay, just finally, Bruce, are your rates going through the roof? Do they just go up every year? This is what I can't understand. We're all pulling in our belt. We just can't demand increased income from our bosses of 15%. Why can't my board? Terrible to me.
It's certainly gone up. Our rates have certainly gone up significantly. And I suspect the council's spending money it shouldn't do. There's an example down the bottom of the road that I live on. I live at Upper Hill, and down at the bottom of the road where it crosses over the other road, they've just erected a new roundabout, which I think will cost nearly $2 million. Now, the roundabout at the bottom of the hill, it's almost impossible now to turn left. The queues are so much longer than they were before, considerably longer than they were before. And when you're going around it, there's at each curve of the roundabout, there is a speed bump. And there's a significant speed bump when you're coming out of the road and going up the hill. So why do you need a speed bump at the bottom of the hill when you're just saying to accelerate going up there? And it's a terrible construction. It must have been designed by an apprentice engineer to slow down traffic and increase queues, because that's what's happened. And it follows on, I suppose, on the New Plymouth Mayor. He said he wants to spend money on things that inspire him. Well, maybe this roundabout inspired the Christchurch City Council, along with another street we used to live close by, where they put in a cycle track wider than the road for the bus to go along. So I don't have a great deal of faith in council activity, but they do spend too much. So the Prime Minister's right.
There's something in the water down in Christchurch. Obviously, Jenny actually says, Bruce, that it's traffic calming. It's trying to calm you down, but it sounds like it's actually doing the opposite.
It's the opposite. Everyone I know who comes up, and the queue goes to about 600 metres.
Yeah.
And
I bet you drive up that concrete ledge every time as well, Bruce, don't you?
Yes, you do.
I knew it.
And if you bus or a truck, I don't see how you can actually navigate to turn left. Perhaps they don't have buses or trucks going left.
Okay, Nancy Margaret says, best speech Luxon has ever made. And Wendy's just rocking Simon. She says, oh my, I love it now. Simon doesn't have to self-censor. Well, he does. His boss is telling him off every meeting. Simon, just rein it in, will you? You're out of control. Anyway, we are out of time. So thank you very much. Susie, lovely to have you on. You did fantastic. Love the blue top. Okay, that's not Democrat top, is it? Definitely not.
It's Samoan.
Yeah, don't wear that. It's Samoan. Well done. Michael, thank you as always. Bruce, thank you for filling in for Rodney Hyde was supposed to be on tonight, and he's actually in Las Vegas. So there we go. And Sue Reed was supposed to be on as well, but her mother sadly passed away last week. So Sue, our love and prayers are with you as you are with all the family in Tasmania in Australia. Simon, tomorrow morning, solid ground. You will be here because last week you were sick and everybody was ringing me up and saying, where is Simon? And I said, disciplined for
discipline. That's
not
right.
Self-censoring. Yeah.
Oh, well, I got two weeks of material now to fit into 30 plus minutes. So we'll see how that goes. Tune in and find out from 8 a.m.
Okay, 8 a.m. That's it. Okay, thanks, team. Great job, and thank you for watching. We'll be back next Monday night at 8 o'clock for Straight Talk. And also, don't forget the new program on Thursdays at 5 p.m. live. As you go home, Simon and I dissect everything that's happened in Parliament over the week. And, yeah, there's always great fodder there as well. Anyway, we're out of time. Have a great night. Thanks for watching.